Raise your light if you made a New Year's resolution. Raise your light if you didn't make a New Year's resolution. Raise your light if you already failed your New Year's resolution. Wow. Okay, it hasn't even been that long. Don't give up. I mean, don't give up again. You already gave up. Raise your light if you're excited about a new year full of new possibilities. Like it's possible that the lockdown will continue and we'll descend into a dystopian police state and all have to get chips implanted in us and work in mines harvesting valuable minerals used to make smartphones for a rich upper class of cyborgs. Wow, okay, that took a turn. Let's lighten it up a bit. Get it? Lighten it up. Because we're raising our lights to answer questions? Ahem. Anyways, raise your light if you like pizza more than tacos. Raise your light if you like tacos more than pizza. Raise your light if you play a sport. Raise your light if you think watching Netflix is a sport. Coke? Or Pepsi? Facebook? Or Instagram? Joke's on you, it's the same thing now. Wave your light if you like TikTok. Okay, some of you immediately did a dance. We get it, you've got moves. Lightning round. What type of Cheetos are the best? Original. Puffy. Anything flamin' hot. Are a hint of lime chips amazing? Or from the pits of hell? Which video game console is the best? Xbox. PS5. Okay, I hear you. Nintendo Switch. Okay. PC. Who do you love more? Mom or dad? Mom. Dad. Neither. Whoa, so much angst in your heart, young one. Will this be the year you find love? Yes? No. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. I'm in love with a man. His name is Jesus. Will you grow more this year in your faith than last year? The first few months of a new year are critical to start something new or begin a new habit that will last far beyond a resolution. So open up your Bible this year. Genesis is awesome. Exodus is pretty cool. Leviticus takes a turn. Skip it. Actually, skip a few if you have to, but the point is keep going. You can do it. It'll change this year and change your heart. Both are good things. I hope you have an awesome year. Hey, it can't be worse than this last one. May your year be filled with a little less Zoom, a lot more flamin' hot Cheetos, plenty of video games and waffles. Lots of waffles. And maybe a little spiritual growth, too. Some new habits. And a deeper heart for Jesus. From all of us at Apple and the Citadel Research Project of the FBI who is listening to every conversation you have, we hope you have a happy new year. Achoo.
Hey, could be. All right, that video is too much fun not to play, so I had to play it because it was fun, and it specifically called out Chris, which I thought was amazing, and also the kids with the light flashlights. That was incredible that you had one. That's awesome. I bring a fire starter to a lot of places, but I don't have one with me today. So if I get stranded in the wilderness today, I'm going to die. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Hey, before we jump into this morning, let's pray. Father, we thank you for today. God, we thank you for a group of people that love to have fun together. And God, we're excited for what you have for us this morning. Would you open our word to us, your word to us, and would you soften our hearts so that we can be molded by your Spirit? We love you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so it is 11:03, which means that we have a little bit of time for this. Who here has set a goal to be physically stronger this year? Physically stronger, all right? We need, all right, a girl, either one, come on up. and a guy. Come on up. Come on up. All right. So, we need you to get into the position of a forearm plank. All right. You know what that is? All right. This is a forearm plank right here. I think we have a picture. There we go. Right there. Just like that. All right. I've got a timer right here. We're going to see how long that you can last in the position of a forearm plank. You might need to take off your jacket. You want to have some friction. If there's not a lot of friction, then it'll be a forearm belly flop or a floor belly flop. All right, you got it? You guys ready? Oh, wait, let me get my timer. We got a stopwatch right here. All right, you guys can go ahead, get in position. And as soon as you assume the form of a plank, forearm plank. Yeah, it's easier. It's easier. All right, ready? On your mark, get set, go. All right, we got the timer running right now. So we're going to continue to introduce the topic this morning, which is pretty cool. So 2 weeks ago, we started this series off by talking about our New Year's resolution. We kind of saw this in the video earlier, but who's already given up on their New Year's resolution or failed at it? I definitely have. Mine was to go to bed before midnight every night, and I failed many times. But I'm still trying. You guys are doing incredible, by the way. You're doing really, really good. By the time end of January comes, there is about 25% of people who set New Year's resolutions that have still kept them, okay? So by the end of January, 75% of people have failed. You guys are doing so good. I see you entering into like some Zen workflow kind of places. Now, I don't know what your goals are for this year. Obviously, these guys, it's physical growth. This is going incredible. Maybe for some of you, it is spiritual growth or it is a mental goal. I mean, read some books or something like that. Relational goals. Maybe they're even these God-sized goals that we're talking about. Man, you guys are going strong. This is incredible. This is incredible. They're at 1 minute and 20 seconds already. Does it feel like it's been longer? Whatever goals that you guys have right now, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news, okay? So we'll start with the bad news. If you haven't already, you're going to realize that keeping your goal is a little bit of a struggle, right? It is difficult. These guys are struggling right now, but they're doing good. They're doing good. You're going to experience opposition and frustration, maybe even a lack of motivation on the way toward achieving your goal. But the good news is that there is hope when your goals are too much to handle on your own. When things get difficult, when things get to where it's a struggle and you feel weak or discouraged, how do you keep pursuing your goals and finishing strong? Man, you guys are going awesome. We're at 2 minutes and 15 seconds already. Hey, we'll keep going. Hey, so if you weren't here this last week, then we can kind of work together to get you up to speed. We are talking about Nehemiah, who kind of wrote this diary that we call the book of Nehemiah. And in Nehemiah is the cupbearer to the king, so he's got this position of influence with the king. Oh, man, it's getting tough. It is getting tough. 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Nehemiah is the cupbearer for the king. He hears some word from some of his people that have gone to Jerusalem, that Jerusalem is in shambles. The walls are not restored. Nehemiah had never even been there. Like 140 years ago, it was attacked and in shambles and destroyed. And as people were starting to come back, he was just heartbroken to see and hear that the city was in ruins. Oh, there we go. 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Well done. That is, guys, I'm being serious. That was incredible. I don't think I could have lasted 30 seconds. You guys did so good. So good. Hey, here, you guys can each have one of these bricks. Don't throw them at anybody. They say God, things, others, and you. So whichever one you want, you can take. All right? Yeah, she's taking the God brick. She's like, I earned this, as well as some candy. There you go. There you go. Good job. Guys, You did incredible. That was so good, and you went so much longer than I thought that you were going to. They are doing well on those goals. So, I'll try it after service. You won't need a timer because if you can count to 10, then you'll be good. You guys are so strong. That was so awesome. So Nehemiah, he hears about this. It breaks his heart. He gets this God-sized vision that God wants him to go and lead the restoration of these walls inside of Jerusalem. But he's a cupbearer to the king. It's not Israel's king. It's some other king. And it's a sketchy kind of situation. If he's even sad in front of the king, he could lose his life. But he starts praying to God, petitioning God every single day for months. God says, Nehemiah, I got your back, bro, and sets up a conversation where the king's like, Nehemiah, why are you sad? Stop crying, man. And Nehemiah says, oh, dude, Jerusalem, walls in shambles. I need your help. Also, will you finance the whole thing? And the king says, I got you, bro. He sends him a bunch of lumber, money, people, soldiers, all this crazy stuff. He finances the trip down to Jerusalem. And Nehemiah gets there, and he starts in action. He already experienced a little bit of some opposition, but we're going to kind of hone in on that today. So, once Nehemiah arrives in Jerusalem, he convinced tons of people living in Jerusalem to get to work together to repair the city walls. So we're going to take like a really quick look at Nehemiah 3. And there's just lots of details in here about gates and people building different things. And the gates sometimes have really funny names. So there was like the fish gate. Okay, that was built by the sons of Hesena. There's lots of A's in there. If you don't know how to say names inside of the Bible, by the way, that's totally all right. You just make it up, like just go for it, and you'll see me do it right now. So the old city gate was repaired by Joiada and Paseah and Meshullam and Bosediah. Yeah, man, there are a lot of vowels in these names. I'm not joking. You should open up your Bible. It's crazy. All right, there was Raphiah, the son of Hur, that led the district of Jerusalem. He was next to the wall of them. It talks about all these different people. It even says this one dude. Everyone else is like sons. And then there's this one guy, Shallum, son of Halahesh, and his daughters. He brought out his daughters to help repair the walls in the next section. No one else has daughters, apparently, that could care about building walls. So I feel like you'd be an awesome wall builder. You just got you could build some walls. So then there's the Valley Gate that was repaired by the people of Zanea or something like that. And then there was a gate called the Dung Gate. And I just want to know what this is. Is it a gate made out of dung? Is that where everyone walks to go? Like, is there toilets outside of that one? They're like, if you need to go outside of the city, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. I've heard about that in like Africa or something. They make like dung huts. Not out of people dung, though. So, that was one of them. I don't know. There was a fountain gate, so I'm assuming that one was by the fountain. Maybe the dung gate's by the dung. I don't know. But the fountain gates were repaired by Shallum, and then it talks about some Levites building some gates, and then Ezer, the son of Jeshua, he's rebuilding a different section. Other sections are repaired by priests from surrounding regions. There's a horse gate that was repaired. Lots of gates, lots of people are involved inside of this thing, and maybe you're kind of wondering why all of those boring details are in there. It's what's coming up to Nehemiah as he's kind of writing this Dear Diary, some things that stood out, and I think that's why you get things like just random people that are inside of there, and like this guy and his daughters, man, that's so crazy. Like he's just filling out the details inside of there as it's coming. So maybe you're wondering why all of those things are in there. But when I look at it and I read it, I'm like, wow, there's so many people that are involved in building this gate. This wasn't a project that Nehemiah could have done on its own. It was this team effort going forward. All right, so we're going to dive into Nehemiah. We're going to pick it up at Nehemiah 4, and we're going to start talking about some of that opposition that Nehemiah faced. So Sanballat was very angry when he learned that we were rebuilding the wall. He flew into a rage. He mocked the Jews. saying in front of his friends and the Samaritan army officers, what does this bunch of poor, feeble Jews think that they're doing? Do they think that they can build the wall in a single day by just offering a few sacrifices? Do they actually think that they can make some stones from this rubbish heap and charred ones at that? Tobiah the Ammonite, who was standing beside them, remarked, this is so funny, that stone wall would collapse if even a fox walked on top of it. So you got like Tobiah out here throwing shade. This is psychological warfare that's going on right here, where these guys are coming at Nehemiah, trying to discourage them, doing all these things. He calls them weak. He mocked the quality of their work. He mocked their pain, mocked their belief. They tried to crush their hope. And even though Nehemiah and his team were being obedient to God, they still had to deal with these haters. So let's see how Nehemiah and his team handle this opposition and frustration. It's Nehemiah 4:4-6. So Nehemiah says, "Then I prayed, 'Hear us, our God, for we are being mocked. May their scoffing fall back on their own heads, and may they themselves become captives in foreign lands. Do not ignore their guilt. Don't blot out their sins, for they have provoked you to anger here in front of the builders.' At last the wall was completed to half its height around the entire city, for the people had worked with enthusiasm." So they got it up to half its height. And there's a lot there that we could talk about, but here's kind of what I noticed. So Nehemiah, first of all, did not get distracted. All right, he didn't fight with these guys. He didn't add drama. And if you know, like sometimes like opposition comes your way, and we can definitely feed the drama a little bit. He doesn't add to the drama at all. Okay, he doesn't even respond to it. Instead, Nehemiah took it straight to God, and he asked God to hear his prayers and to make it right. And he wasn't afraid to be honest with God about how he felt. Right? He was like, God, deal with them, make them enemies, captives in other lands, and all these things. Like, that's what was going on inside of his heart. He wanted those people to be punished, but he gave it to God to let God be the one who dispenses justice inside of the situation. And instead, Nehemiah kept going. He and his team kept building no matter what those guys had to say. They rebuilt the wall to half of its original height, and everyone had just poured their hearts into this thing so far. It's just amazing. So then we see Nehemiah 4. We're going to read 4:7 all the way up to 23. It says this, "But when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs and Ammonites and Ashdodites heard that the work was going ahead and that the gaps in the walls of Jerusalem were being repaired, they were furious. They made plans to come and fight against Jerusalem and throw us into confusion. But we prayed to our God and guarded the city day and night to protect ourselves. Then the people of Judah began to complain," so it's kind of getting into their heads a little bit. "The workers are getting tired and there's so much rubble to be removed. We'll never be able to build the wall by ourselves." Meanwhile, the enemies were saying, "Before they know what's happening, we'll swoop down on them and we'll kill them and end their work." The Jews who lived near the enemy came and told us again and again, "Hey, they're going to come and they're going to attack us from all directions." So I placed the armed guards behind the lowest parts of the wall in the exposed areas, and I stationed the people to stand guard by families armed with swords, spears, and bows. Then as I looked over the situation, I called together the nobles and the rest of the people of Israel and said to them, "Don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord who is great and glorious and fights for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes." And when our enemies heard that we knew of their plans and that God had frustrated them, we all returned to work on the wall. But from then on, only half the men worked, while the other half stood guard with spears and shields and bows and coats of mail. The leaders stationed themselves behind the people of Judah who were building the wall, and the laborers carried on their work while one hand supporting their load and the other hand holding a weapon. All the builders had a sword belted to their side. The trumpeters stayed with me to sound the alarm, and then I explained to the nobles and the officials and all the people, "The work is very spread out, and we are widely separated from each other along the wall. When you hear the blast of the trumpet, rush to wherever the trumpet is sounding, and then our God will fight for us." While we worked early and late from sunrise to sunset, and half the men were always on guard. I also told everyone living outside the walls to stay in Jerusalem. That way they and their servants could help guard duty at night and work during the day. During this time, none of us, not I, nor my relatives, nor my servants, nor the guards who were with me, ever even took off our clothes. That's gross. We carried our weapons with us at all times, even when we went for water. They didn't even bathe, or maybe they bathed underneath their outfits. I'm not sure. But after so much opposition here, the strength of Nehemiah's team was kind of giving out. They were letting some of this discouragement get inside of their head, inside of their minds. The bullies there, they were just relentless, constantly going after them. But Nehemiah was committed, and he was strategic, right? He had a plan that was going on inside of here. So let's look at what Nehemiah did as part of his plan to continue to be strategic. So the first thing is this: Nehemiah took it to God, right? Straight away, he took it to God. He had been in constant communication with God, and from this time, it was no different, right? From the beginning, he was doing it all the way up through right now. This moment was no different there. The second thing is this: Nehemiah prioritized rest. He realized and he knew that his team needed rest if they were going to have the strength to keep going. So he found a way to work them into shifts, right? If you've ever been in a situation where like you were fearful of something, that something was going to happen, it's really hard to get rest. I remember for some reason, I don't know exactly what it was or why this happened, but when I was a kid, I was so afraid that a robber was going to break into my house in the middle of the night and kill me. Like, I don't know why. Like, it was just a constant thing that I dealt with, and I would be overcome with fear sometimes. I would even, like, and this is so weird, I don't know why this made sense to me as a little kid, but we had a security alarm, but I was convinced that it wasn't going to work because it was supposed to catch the sound of breaking glass and set off an alarm, and I had broken a window one time, and it did not set off the alarm. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I could be murdered at any moment. And so I would be in my room, and I'm like on the way far separate end of the house. Like no one could hear me scream, right? I know this because sometimes I would scream and no one would come. And so I would try, this is pre-puberty, all right? I would try to scream in the highest pitch that I could to mimic the sound of breaking glass and set off the alarm. So it would be green, and then I would go, ah, like, as high as I could, pre-puberty Eddie. And it would go yellow and then turn red. And if it was red for like 2 seconds, because glass breaks for a long period, I don't know why that took so long, but it would eventually set off the alarm. And I would set off the alarm like once a month just to test things out. And when I knew that it was working and I knew that I was protected for some reason, then I could be like, and I could like finally rest, right? So Nehemiah is seeing the importance of rest here. He sets it up to where people are on guard while the other people can get rest and know that they are being protected from the enemies attacking them. Third thing is this: Nehemiah chose community, all right? Nehemiah's team committed to protecting and supporting each other for as long as their opposition lasted, and community is so important. And then last is this: Nehemiah kept going again. So even though the job was a little bit more difficult than it had been in the beginning, Nehemiah never stopped working. He kept moving forward. He kept adjusting his plan, and he kept getting creative in order to get people to continue their work. And I wish that I could tell you that Nehemiah's opposition ends there, but it doesn't. Like, the people still keep coming after him, and then he ends up facing some opposition from the Jewish people themselves. At one point, Nehemiah received a series of terrifying letters and death threats, and these men did not want Nehemiah to finish the wall. But watch how Nehemiah reacts. We're going to jump all the way to Nehemiah 6:9. He says this: "They were just trying to intimidate us, imagining that they could discourage us and stop the work." So his response: "So I continued to work with even greater determination," right? He buckles down, keeps going. And I don't know if you've been through a really tough time where you had to just buckle down and push through it. But one of those times for me was when I was on my very first backpacking trip through the mountains of the San Juan Mountains in Colorado. I had taken a group of teenagers out there, and I've told you guys a little bit about these stories before, but the very first time that I went out, I got the heaviest load in the pack. I mean, I was strapped down. When you're going out for 5 days, think about all the things you got to carry. You've got to carry a tent for you to sleep in. You've got to carry a sleeping bag to go out there. You've got to carry a sleeping pad that goes underneath your sleeping bag that separates you from the ground. Otherwise, the ground will suck out the heat from your body. You'll get hypothermia and die, and we're trying not to die. So we've got all of those things going on. We've also got gear to cook with. So we've got stoves, and we've got gas cans that are inside of there. Then you've got your food for 3 meals for 5 days. Someone do quick math. Quick. 15. We got 15 meals that we've got to carry because we've got to eat all of those things. And then you've got all of your clothes, and you've got to at least have a couple things to change into. Otherwise, you're going to smell really bad. And so you've got your day clothes, but then you've also got your night clothes, because your night clothes, you want them to be dry and all of those things. In the San Juan Mountains, it's going to get to like 70 degrees during the day, and at night, it can drop down into the 30s. And so you need to put on fleece and all these different things. So you're carrying a bunch of stuff, and it's about 60, 70 pounds that you're carrying on your back inside of a backpack. And up to this point, I had done like some day hikes and stuff like that, but physically, I was not in the shape to walk 10 to 20 miles a day for 5 days with 70 pounds on my back. And so it was a situation where I did great the first day, I did great the second day, I did great the third day, but by the fourth day, something in my leg went wrong, and all of a sudden, it was incredibly painful to walk, like tremendous. I knew something was bad. My knee was swollen and big, and every single step that I took, it got more and more painful. And I remember going to the leaders and just going, I don't really know what to do about this, and I kind of brought it to them, and they said, well, do you want it, because they have a satellite phone, do you want us to call the garden or the rescue team in, and they'll come and pick you up with a helicopter? I'm like, well, a helicopter ride would be pretty cool, right? But we're out in the San Juan Mountains. We're there so that our teenagers could focus on God and their relationship with God. And up to that point, it had been incredible. Our students were diving deep into the Word of God and thinking about what His plan was for their life. And when you're out in the mountains, there's no cell phone signal, right? In fact, you've been out so long that your cell phone's dead, even if you brought it with you. And it's not working. There's no one that can call you. There's no one that can, anything could happen. Like every time we would come back out of the mountains after 5 days, it was like the world had changed. Like something in the world had happened, and we're like, we had no idea, right? We're just out of communication. And God was speaking to our teenagers like so directly, so loudly. And I didn't want their main takeaway from this trip was, hey, remember that time Pastor Eddie got taken away in a helicopter, right? Like that's all they would have remembered if I had been taken away at that point. And so I decided to buckle down, no complaints. I'm just going to push through this all the way back. And we had about 20 miles of hiking downhill and uphill till we got back to the camp and I could get some medical attention, right? And so, I talked to some of the leaders. They did make a plan to where they took off some of the weight of my pack, right? They took on some of the weight themselves and helped me distribute that. But then for 20 miles over the next 2 days, I hiked out of the mountains, and it was about 2 months of recovery for my leg to get back to a normal, usable shape again. From that, had physical therapy and some of those things in order to help repair the damage that had been done. But it was pretty bad. But I can remember in there, I mean, it was so painful that I was sweating, right? And if you've ever hurt something bad enough to where it just hurts so bad, you're just drenched in sweat, that's what it was. We would get all the girls to look one way, and when we would bunk down for the night, I would go into the streams that were running off directly from the snow in the mountains, and I would strip down to where I was in basically a European bathing suit, and would lay in this like 33-degree water, just letting the water run over my entire leg so that it would numb everything and I could get a little bit of relief to carry me through the night. Didn't sleep well, any of those things, because it hurt so bad. But I pushed through, and thankfully I had a community with me that was there to help pick up the load that I couldn't carry on my own to get back to the very end. And now me hurting my leg is not at all in their memory. of what happened on that trip, but it was about how they encountered the real and living God, which is incredible, and was my goal through the whole thing. And so it was something that I just had to push through inside of those moments, though. And we could see the same thing in Nehemiah. When things got really tough and things were going against Nehemiah, there were times that he just had to push through and keep going. And in your life and in the situations that you're facing, there are going to be times when things are really difficult. It feels like the whole world is against you, and you are going to have to push through as well. One second, I'm going to pick up right where we were. So hundreds of years after Nehemiah, this story had taken place, all of those things, there was another man that had a God-sized goal. And this God-sized goal for him was that he was going to bring the good news of Jesus to the entire world. And his name was Paul, and he was one of the leaders of the early church. And at some point during Paul's ministry, he wrote this letter to a young man named Timothy. And here's what he had to say to encourage Timothy. It's in 2 Timothy 1:7. Oh, we got it up there. Okay. So, for God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. Now, we all know what it's like to face obstacles, to face really, really difficult things, some more difficult than others, of course. But that's never more true than when we're chasing God-sized goals. And although God never promises that things are going to be easy, that process is going to be easy, here's what he has promised, all right? He has promised that we do not need to be afraid, that God's Spirit will be with us, and that God will give us strength. And along with strength, Paul mentions love and self-discipline too. And when God gives us God-sized goals, the challenges and oppositions that we face can be a gift. And the resistance can help us strengthen our faith muscles, right? Because when we do difficult things, just like this planking up here, right? That was hard and that was difficult. And you guys are probably going to wake up tomorrow and be like, oh, that was painful, right? That's part of your muscles tearing so that it can rebuild. And when they rebuild stronger, and you have a stronger core. And then next time you can go for 4 minutes. We'll see next week. I'm just kidding. We won't do it next week, so please come back. But it helps you build those strength muscles, right? When there are difficult times and you feel a little bit torn, but God carries you through those moments, it builds those muscles back even stronger so that you can go through more, you can handle more in the midst of all of those things. It helps you grow in love, and it helps you develop grit. Someone define grit for me. Not grits. Those are like a southern food. What? Character, yeah? Anybody else? Character definitely has something to do with it, yeah. Yeah, never giving up no matter what's in your way. I think character has a big part to do with that. The best way I could describe it is just like, like it's just that like, you just go for it. Like Rafi said, you never giving up no matter what. It's that push through. It's that drive to get through anything that's in front of you. And that can help develop those things. And just like Nehemiah planned to experience opposition, we should expect to face difficulties whenever we're setting out to pursue a God-sized goal. But here is the good news, and that is no matter what the world throws at us, God gives us strength to pursue God-sized goals. Sometimes it seems like our challenges can become the most difficult right before we cross the finish line, and that's certainly true of a guy named Derek Redmond, who was a runner who completed the 1992 Olympics. Derek had planned and prepared and trained hard, but 250 meters away from the finish line, his hamstring tore. If you're on streaming with us on YouTube, we're going to have to black out this section right here. But for those of us, advertise the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Womp womp. Didn't happen. But the second thing that I noticed was that the dad's shirt said, "Have you hugged your foot today?" So I don't know if that was a commercial for yoga or what exactly that was, but how does that work? Oh, maybe the shoe hugs your foot? Okay. All right, I can see that. I don't know what's going on with my stand today. It's probably just the weight of my Bible crushing it. But I love that imagery when Derek blows out his hamstring, cannot go farther any longer by himself, right? He tries, the pain gets too much. His dad swoops in and picks him up, puts his shoulder underneath his arm, starts carrying him through, and then you see a trainer or someone else is coming up. He's like, "Hey, come on, man, I can help you out." And his dad is just like, "Get out of here! I got this. This is our time right now," and created this world-renowned, memorable moment inside of that race. Was just wild. God can do the same thing for you. When you're facing something that seems insurmountable, or when the things that are coming against you as you're pursuing your God-sized goal are just mind-blowing. It's got you discouraged. It's got you down. When you turn to God during those times, that's when he comes in, swoops in, and can even carry you when you can't keep going on your own, right? And that's how you start to build some of those faith muscles inside of that, is getting to the point where you're relying on God to carry you through those things. So what's one of your goals? What is something that you are thinking of right now, as we've been talking about goals in this last series, in the last 3 weeks? Maybe you're not sure about the whole God thing or God-sized goals, and that's okay. What I'm going to share with you is, it can apply to any kind of opposition or discouragement or difficulty that you're facing in life. If you're not sure if you found that God-sized goal for yourself, that's okay too, right? A God-sized goal doesn't need to change the entire world, but, it might be just as simple as bringing light or making a difference for Jesus in your school or in your group of friends or in your family. If you think that you have a God-sized goal that's growing in your heart, that's amazing. Keep listening, because you're bound to face some opposition to that goal eventually. And a few moments ago, we saw how Nehemiah handled that opposition, and now we're going to take a quick look at what would happen if we took those same tactics that Nehemiah used and then applied them toward our goals. So I would have some kind of goal in your mind as you're going through this. Maybe it's your New Year's resolution. Maybe it's a God-sized goal. Maybe it's a small goal and not necessarily one of those God-sized things. But keep something inside of your mind right now as we're kind of going through these things, and it's going to help you be able to apply them inside of your mind. So when you need strength to pursue God-sized goals, the first thing you do is you take it to God, right? We saw Nehemiah. He faced the opposition. He immediately took it to God and let God handle the consequences for the other person, but he expressed with his heart how he actually felt to God and gave it to him. What would it look like for you to talk to God more regularly? What would you ask for? What would you say? Second thing is to choose community. Choose community. I would even take it a step farther and say commit to community, right? For some reason, it is super easy for us to commit to sports teams and all those kind of things. Your coach says, "Hey, you got to be there for every single practice," right? It is important that you're here. The team is not the same without you. It's important for your development, for the development of the team, right? And for winning the games. Same thing is true here in this place, whether it's Sunday morning, Wednesday nights, both. This is a community that requires a commitment to be a part of, right? And it is important that you're here, not just for yourself, because it is important for you, because these people like Nehemiah, you're going to be the people that are surrounding each other, encouraging each other, lifting each other up, sharing each other's load, like in my story, right? Maybe not a physical load, but an emotional, a relational, a spiritual load, right? We're lifting each other up. So it's not only good for you, but it's good for the team, right? There are gifts and talents and abilities and personalities that you bring to the table that no one else can. So it is important that you are here. that we grow together, and we'll grow together better with you here than not being here. So choose community, commit to community. The third thing is rest. You've got to find a time in your schedule where you are focusing on recovering. And rest doesn't always mean just like laying in your bed and not doing anything for hours. Your parents might say, man, my teenager is great at rest. They don't wake up till 3 o'clock on Saturdays. I was definitely that teenager, but I wasn't resting during those times. I had just stayed up till like 6 o'clock in the morning. And so I woke up at 3 p.m. and was still very tired. My parents were like, what's going on? But find rest, take actual rest. And maybe for some of you guys, it's going to be getting more physical sleep. Maybe for some of you, it's spending time with friends, or maybe it's reading a good book, or maybe it's getting out in nature and hiking. Like whatever it is, find rest, time away from devices and things like that. Fourth thing is this: don't get distracted. When you're following God, not everyone's going to like it or support it. They're going to try to distract your attention and your focus, all of those kind of things. Opposition is going to come the more that you're pursuing God-sized goals. But tune those voices out, right? Find the group of people around you that have the same focus in growing toward God together, and focus on more on those voices and less on the ones that are trying to distract you. Whose voices do you need to learn to ignore? And then the fifth thing is that grit. It's keep going. Take a deep breath, okay? And as long as you're breathing in and you're breathing out, and take that breath out slowly, you are here, right? That means you're still on the planet. You have another chance to keep going. Opposition is going to come. Things are going to get difficult. But if you know Jesus, then you've got the Spirit of God inside of you, filling you with strength and with power and love and self-discipline, his word says. With God, you can keep going. And so, what's one goal that you're working on right now that requires God's strength? Okay? Get something inside of your mind. We're actually going to have a little bit of a response, then we're going to break out into our small groups. But on your chair is a brick, and you can see some people from our first service that already did this. But you're going to write a goal that you have down on that brick, okay? And then you're going to tape it onto the board, brick out, because we're building a wall, right? And you're going to put your goals up as a part of this thing. You don't need to sign your name or anything like that, but make it a goal. Maybe it's the God-sized goal that God is growing inside of you right now. Maybe it's a personal goal that you have for some of the growth that we talked about earlier: physical growth, emotional growth, relational, spiritual, any of those kind of things. Maybe it's a goal that you want to set for yourself during these times right now. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with God at all. That's okay too. We're glad that you're here. But we'd love for you to focus on something that's building your relationship with God. So we're going to take a couple minutes, and we're going to play a song in the background. As you finish writing that goal, come up and tape it to the wall. And then once we're kind of through that, I'm going to close us in prayer and dismiss you to your small groups.